Hey everybody, welcome to the Blacklist, the show where we interview the elite. Today we have Tracy Coenan. She's going to talk about divorce, how to find money during divorce, and a lot of things. But for most people, this is their first time listening in. They probably have never seen you before, right? Who is Tracy? And give me a little bit of a background about yourself.
I am a forensic accountant, which means that I find money.
Yeah.
So a lot of my work involves fraud investigations on the corporate side where executives are stealing money or manipulating financial statements. But I also do work on personal matters like high net worth divorce cases.
Yep.
So I'm helping people find money there.
Yeah. So let me ask you, right? You've heard the story. You've heard the statistics of like one out of every two people get divorced, right? Is this the business that you're in? Do you find that there's a lot of manipulation when divorce happens, and because that can be a very excruciating type of pain when people go through it. I haven't gone through it yet. I hope I never go through something like that. But what's your experience when kind of working with individuals that do go through it?
The people who come to me for fraud investigations in their divorces are usually already pretty sure that something has gone wrong with the money.
Yeah.
So I can't use my experience to validate statistics, but what I will tell you is that for average people who are getting divorced, there is very often a concern about what has happened to the money. Now, it doesn't always rise to the level of someone thinking that money has been hidden or there has been financial infidelity, but there might just be legitimate concerns. I just want to know what has happened to my money,
Yeah.
especially since still in most marriages, one spouse has primary control of the money and pays the bills and watches the budget. And it is most often still the husband who is doing that.
Right. Right. And what do you find when they hire you? Who's usually hiring you?
It is usually the wife
Yeah.
because she has questions about the money.
Yeah. And then what ends up happening there is the husband, because do they just lock them out of accounts? Do they not show them everything? What's like the typical thing that you end up seeing?
So, what I do on the consulting side is work with people who have higher earnings, higher assets. And so they have complicated financial
Right.
situations. I am really untangling all of that for them, helping my client understand how much money you have, where it is, and what has the money been spent on. Now, many of the cases that I get involved in have concerns about affairs and how much money was spent there,
Oh wow.
or concerns about money being transferred to secret bank accounts
Yep.
that
Yep.
the wife never knew about. So that's the consulting work that I do.
Yeah.
But last year I created the Divorce Money Guide, which is the product that applies to probably 90% of people who are going through divorce, the
Right.
average person, where they are questioning, I just want to know what's happened with the money. Maybe they do have those fraud concerns. So, what I'm doing with those folks is offering them a tool to help show them here's what's going to happen in the financial part of your divorce.
Yeah.
Here are the financial documents you need. And here's what to look for in them to get your questions answered.
And that's good because you're empowering people to essentially do it on themselves, to do it themselves, because they can't always, hire somebody like you, or
Right?
in most cases, they don't even know someone like you exists, right? So I
Right.
think getting this out to the people that need it is very, very important because a lot of times women can feel out of the loop of things, especially if they're not the breadwinner. They can feel, especially in divorces, just unempowered, right?
Right.
Why did you end up creating the Divorce Money Guide to kind of help out, 90% of people?
Because I got frustrated that there was not an option for them if they were concerned about the money.
Yeah.
There are tools out there to help people who are going through divorce to figure out what their budget might be or to, understand how to manage their money. But there wasn't a tool to help them dig in and find out what's been going on and whether their spouse has been doing anything inappropriate or just, having that basic understanding about how much have we been spending every month.
Yeah.
And for most people, like I said, those 90% of people who are in divorce, they have a pretty ordinary situation where it's not complicated. If their husband is hiding money, it's actually not that complicated once I tell you where to look.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's smart, and that's very good. So the Divorce Money Guide. Tell me a little bit more about that. If people were interested in finding that, one, where can they find it? Two, like, how much is it? Walk me through that a little bit.
The Divorce Money Guide is easy to find. They can go to divorcemoneyguide.com, and it's
Okay.
going to take them right to a page that's going to give them all the information about it, give them opportunity to buy it if they are interested. If they have questions, there's a contact form there that they can fill out. But the Divorce Money Guide is quite simply a tool where you buy the product,
Yeah.
you watch some videos, you get your financial documents, you find the money.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. So I'm walking you through some of the most common places that someone might be hiding the money. For example, I have you take your bank statements, go through them line by line, looking at the transactions. You know your family's patterns. You
Right.
know what money should be spent on. And there will be things that jump out at you on those statements. And I talk about the kinds of things that you should be looking for.
What's the difference between that and your book, which for people that, probably can't, there you go. Now, like I said, find me the money, right? What's the
Find me
difference between the both?
Find Me the Money, the book, is really an introduction to what would the divorce money guide be like.
Yeah.
That's kind of the premise. It's written as a story. It is the story of Jackie, who left her corporate job to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yep.
She's been a stay-at-home mom for the last 10 years. She's been uninvolved in the family finances other than here or there, but she always had enough money to cover her needs and her wants and
Right.
take care of the kids and, make sure the family had what they needed. Her husband was having an affair. They're now getting divorced, and she wants to know what has been happening with the money.
Yeah.
She wants to know, how much has he spent on this affair? Is he hiding any money from me? How do I get the best possible divorce settlement? And so Find Me the Money walks us through the journey that she goes through, where she becomes empowered to look at her own finances. And it gives some really great tips and tools throughout the story
Yeah.
to show people what you would look for and make it really tangible. Because I think the concept of the divorce money guide for a lot of people is really hard to get their arms around. They understand maybe what an accountant is, what a forensic accountant is, but they don't know, how would I, a person maybe who isn't even good with numbers or who has no accounting background, how would I find money? By illustrating Jackie's story and what she did, it helps people have a greater understanding of how they could do it themselves as well.
Yeah. And also very engaging, because if it was just tactical, I don't know, they might, they
Right.
might put down the book, but
Right.
the,
Well, and it's also, it's a lower price point. A book is a
Yeah.
much smaller investment for someone who maybe, doesn't have a lot of resources, but wants to find some actionable tips that they
Yeah.
can use in their own divorce.
yeah. So earlier, before we even, started rolling, you were mentioning that a prenup is good for both sides. And I think the traditional thought of a prenup is that it only protects the the man, right?
Right.
Why is it also beneficial for the woman to get a prenup with her husband?
Right. So I have been doing this divorce work for over 25 years, and I've seen it go wrong, seen the money situation go wrong at the divorce time. And so
Yeah.
I like to talk to people about protecting themselves as they go into marriage, and a prenup is one really great way. No matter how much money you have or how little, a prenup is going to help protect you, because without a prenup, you are subject to the laws of wherever you live when
Yeah.
you get divorced. You've got a divorce court judge who's going to decide what happens with your money. The prenup is your opportunity to decide for yourselves how we're going to split things. So maybe you have a business that you own before you go into your marriage.
Yeah.
You and your wife are going to decide before you get married what would happen with that business if we ever got divorced. Is that going to stay solely your property and she gets nothing from it? Or is she going to get a portion of what it's worth, and how would that be calculated? You can be really creative with that. And so it protects the business you have before you get married, but it also protects her because she knows exactly what she's going to get at divorce time. So it protects both sides.
Is it better if they have legal representation for the prenup before they go into it? Because what I'm thinking is the man can truly make the prenup for, in benefit for himself, right? And then because the woman has never done it before, like
Right.
they're going in blind essentially, right?
In order to make a prenup valid, both parties have to have their own attorney representing them.
Good.
For that very reason is they don't want someone to be taken advantage of in this process, right? The person who is in the lesser financial position, maybe earning less money, maybe not earning any money at all, is at risk of being taken advantage of in this process. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
each person has to have their own attorney to make
Okay.
this valid.
That's good. I have some questions, and this kind of stems because as a man, from what I've heard, um, the man usually gets like maybe not the short end of the stick, but in divorces, especially in like Washington State or other locations, sometimes they can really favor the woman. Is that what you find?
What I find is that men say the process favors women and
Yeah,
women say the process favors
that's
men.
fair. That's fair.
So with the work that I do, I work mostly with women. That's just who my client base has become.
Right.
With the Divorce Money Guide, the people using it are mostly women, even though it's a gender neutral product.
Yeah.
But I speak to women when
Yeah.
I'm marketing because that's who has been seeking me out.
And that's who needs it, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I get a lot of hate in return.
I
Don't
bet.
women hide money too?
Yeah.
And so there's concerns about that. Here's the deal. I just want to level the playing field. I am not here to stick it to the husband. I'm not here to show a woman how you cheat your husband out of some money.
Yep.
I'm here to level the playing field, but I also want to change the narrative surrounding the finances in divorce. The way that people talk about the finances in divorce is really important. And what has typically been said is he gives her money. He's paying her.
Yep.
Let's talk about it a little bit differently. While we were married, we accumulated assets. We are now dividing them. No one's taking, no one's giving. We are dividing in a fair way. And that's what I'm here to help facilitate is get fairer settlements.
Yeah. I like what you said. You're not sticking it to the man. You're not,
No.
and in this conversation, I'm not hearing that you're against men or anything like that. You're
Right.
just trying to make it fair. And in some cases, I do believe that, yeah, like, men can get screwed. In other cases, I believe women can get screwed.
Sure.
But if they have legal representation on both sides, they have somebody like you, it actually becomes a lot more fair than it would, than I'd say than it would normally be if they didn't have that, right?
Well, right. And you can't get a fair settlement in your divorce if you don't have all of the information. And
Yeah.
that is really what we focus on in the book
Yep.
and in the Divorce Money Guide. It's about getting the information about the finances. And if your spouse is obstructing that process, is not giving you financial information, is not telling you what accounts they have or giving you account statements, I always say, what are they hiding? Because if there's nothing to hide, just tell me about the account. Just
Right.
give me the statements. And so I'm trying to level that playing field by making sure that both sides have all the relevant information in the divorce before they enter into any sort of settlement.
Let's say, to make this relatable for people that, like for me, let's take me as a perfect example. I just proposed like 2 weeks ago in London. So she's my fiance now. We haven't gotten married yet. The first thing to do would be to get a prenup, right? Legal representation on both sides. Get a prenup
Yes.
before we move into marriage. And then during that process, let's say, God forbid, but we do end up getting a divorce afterwards. What are some things that you would see if I wasn't being completely honest with my spouse?
Well, I would see that you maybe had some bank accounts that you didn't tell her about, or maybe you had a secret credit card.
Yeah.
Or I might see in your joint bank account that you were taking out cash. And maybe that is really new for you. That's not something you did. I don't know about you, but I pretty much use a debit card or a credit
Right.
card everywhere I go. It helps for tracking my spending. If one of you suddenly started using cash a lot more, to me, that's a little bit suspicious because it sort of indicates that there might be something you're spending money on that you
Right,
don't
right.
want her to know about.
Yeah.
I might see you doing things like being a little bit more secretive about your behavior, about your finances. I might see you restricting your wife's access
Yep.
to financial information,
This is
maybe
good info. Yeah.
locking her out of the bank account so she can't go online and see what's going on.
Yep.
Maybe forging her signature on some documents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the kinds
So
of things that we see.
So you're identifying patterns, basically things that are not necessarily normal within these bank statements, or things that that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I
Or
guess,
those changes in behavior. And what I like to say is, I give you a laundry list of things that I might see as red flags
Yeah.
of financial fraud. And if someone saw one of those, maybe you started going to the ATM, but that was the only concerning sign, I probably wouldn't put much stock in it. I would probably say, yeah, there's got to be an explanation. It's when there are multiple signs, multiple suspicious things that are going on that we start to get more concerned.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And why go into this specifically, right? Like, because you could have chosen any career path. Um, yeah, why go into this specifically?
I am uniquely suited to be a fraud investigator. My mind works in a certain way to unravel what's been going on or put that financial puzzle together.
Yeah,
I can see things that other people don't see in the numbers. I have an intuition that's really great, and it really interests me. I love what I do. I've been doing it for more than 25 years. But what I get asked a lot is, why divorce?
yeah,
And it's simply, I like helping people reclaim control over their finances and get what they deserve. And divorce is one of those places where there is a lot of risk that one party might not get what they deserve. So I really enjoy working with my clients, empowering them to level that playing field, make the process fairer.
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. In terms of the book, where can people find the book if they're looking to, purchase it and have it?
Find Me the Money is easily found at findmethemoney.com.
Okay. Is it on Amazon or anything else?
It
Or
is
is it
on
just
Amazon, so it is available in Kindle format,
perfect?
paperback, hardcover, and audiobook.
And did you record the audio?
I did record the audio.
How was that? How was that?
It was great. It was a really great experience to go back through the book. You get really immersed in the process of writing it.
Yeah.
And doing the audiobook was a chance to just step back and like flow through the story again.
Right.
And it made me so proud of how it came together when I had to read it out loud.
Do you find that, when you're doing the audiobook that you realize like, oh, maybe I should have added this in there, or what goes into writing something as like a book? Because you do have to go quite in depth for people to understand, right? But you also, I don't know if you put everything else in there, right? Because it might be, not that small of a book, it might be, a huge book. So what goes into the process of like kind of dialing everything into something as readable as a book?
What I did this time around, this is my fourth book.
Yeah.
And so this time I hired a consultant who helped me develop the concept. They have a process to put together a book in a way that is really readable,
Yep.
reader friendly. And so that was really helpful to work with a consultant who said, okay, here's kind of the process. We're going to divide it into 3 pieces and kind of craft the story so it flows this way. And so I did not find that process difficult because they laid it out for me and helped me fill it in. We sat for a day creating a really detailed outline of what the story would be.
Yep.
And then I just had to go back and write it to fill in, all of the words.
And plus, it's your fourth book, so I feel like
Right.
you
It's
have
all
it down
that.
already. Yeah, exactly.
Although this one's a little bit different. The other ones were written for attorneys and accountants, and they were very technical.
Yeah.
This one being a story was a little bit different.
Yeah, and just kind of like going back to what I was saying, that's probably the best way that people are going to digest the information is going through a story. People might see themselves in that, right? People, who was the main character again?
The main character is Jackie, and I guarantee any woman who is considering divorce or who is already in the process of divorce will read this book and will see pieces of her own story in there. Because what I did was create Jackie out of all of these divorce stories that I've worked on throughout the years.
Yeah.
And so there are so many common threads that I see over and over, and I wove those into the story. And I think that anyone who reads it will end up seeing shades of her own scenario in there.
I appreciate that. That's very good. I want to ask you something that may be a curveball, but from what I've heard, and again, I don't have this information on hand. I've heard that women initiate most of the divorces. Do you come across that?
Statistically speaking, it is true that women do the divorce filing more often.
Yeah.
But why is that? Is it because they really want the divorce or because they are in a situation where they feel there is no other option for them? And so who files the paperwork is not necessarily indicative of anything important.
I love that because you're right. Like a lot of people, like for me, I will throw like a statistic of things that I've just heard about, right? Because I'm not too deep into the space. But the main reason why this is so super important is because for a lot of people, they might have misconceptions, right? I probably have a ton about why my scenario is better and all
Right.
that, right? About divorces and things like that. But and then you speak to somebody like yourself who's an expert in this, and you give the reasons. You obviously you know the statistics, you know a lot of the actual information that kind of goes into that. How do we start switching the conversation from, misconceptions that I might have to what you actually know about?
We start switching it by me continuing to do exactly what I've been doing, getting on social media and, writing blog posts and just getting out here on podcasts, talking about the realities of divorce and the financial side of it. And what I've found is within the divorce community, there are other voices much like mine
Yeah.
who want to change the narrative surrounding divorce, who want to make it a situation where it's not as shameful to get divorced anymore, where people are openly talking about the finances and demanding transparency and disclosure during the process. And really, taking those stereotypes and shooting them down when they're really not valid.
Yeah. No, I can see that. What's the future look like for your do you plan on writing another book after this about anything else or an advanced version?
I suspect that I will write another book, but the last year has been really jam packed with creating the divorce money guide,
Yeah.
rolling it out, marketing, and, trying different marketing messages, different marketing methods, and then rolling out the book. So there's been a lot going on the last year, and I feel like we are hitting our stride in terms of sales of the book and the divorce money guide. And so I really want to lean into that and really work a lot more closely with the people who are purchasing the divorce money guide,
Yeah.
purchasing the group coaching option, and kind of, really get feedback from them, really have them get great results. And then maybe, a year from now, think about next products or product enhancements or maybe another book.
So let's say someone gets the divorce money guide, they get the book, and they want the group coaching. How does that look like if they want the group coaching to work with you?
Super easy. I mean, they have an option on the website to upgrade to group coaching at any time. So the divorce money guide is that standalone product where they are going to, self-direct
Yeah.
and watch videos, do worksheets, gather documents, things like that. When they upgrade to add the group coaching on, they get 8 weeks of membership to our private Facebook group. And in that group, there is new weekly video content where I am taking concepts from the divorce money guide, going through them in more detail, adding information to it, giving them more tips, more areas to look for, talking about specific situations and questions that people have. They can do what I call Ask Tracy Anything.
Yep. Yep.
So we do that in the group as well. They interact with each other. They can complain. They can ask each other for advice. They can ask me for advice. They really can ask me anything, and I'll take a stab at helping them with any of their issues in divorce. So they'll be in that group for 8 weeks. If they come to the end of the 8 weeks, then they find that they want to remain. They can certainly add a monthly membership onto that,
Yeah.
or they can graduate from the group and carry on with their divorce and their new life that's coming.
Yeah. Well, that's good for people that are interested, for people that want a little bit more of like one, not necessarily one-on-one, but more of like a community around that because
Right.
they might be facing something that's challenging. That's a very good option for them.
Well, we do have a one-on-one option for those who have a little more complicated situations
Yeah.
because that was something that was being requested as well. For someone who maybe doesn't need to go to the full-blown consulting option for those bigger cases that I work, but they still need a little more than they can get in a group setting. We created a one-on-one to help them manage their process as well.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for being on the show. Where can people find you?
They can find me at divorcemoneyguide.com or they can find the book at findmethemoney.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.